Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker Apes and Engines episode 12, and today we have on Kidmoto22. Hello Kidmoto, and thank you for joining me on Apes and Engines today.
Oh man, it has been it's an honor and a pleasure to come on here. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I only had someone else on because I literally just started doing these again. So yourself and one other guest who should be out before this, a Monkey Butt. He came on. I had you two guys targeted for ages, but I just didn't have internet. So, and then when I did get internet, I was still moving in. But anyway, it was a whole thing. So we're there now. So I can start doing podcasts again because I really enjoy them. They're fun, as you know.
Yes.
But to jump right into it, your channel is 1 year old. Am I correct in that?
Yep. So I started my channel. It's a little bit over. It's about a year and a half old. So this coming April, May, June, I think May. I think this coming May will be 2 years for my channel.
Okay. So getting there.
Yeah, I'm about a year. I would say I'm about a year and a half into it. I really consider myself more maybe a year into it, only because this I guess spring was when I really got more serious about being able to get consistent content out every week. So up until that, the prior summer I had a number of audio issues, just what normal moto vloggers go through when they're kind of working out their issues. You get everything hooked up and you think you got it worked out, and then you go film a couple moto vlogs and you get home and you got no sound or the camera's not on.
Know that all too well.
Yeah. So it took me a little bit. It took me pretty much my first summer to get it dialed in. And then I thought I had everything dialed in, and I started my winter mod series, which is, I can't ride here in the wintertime. And so my winter mod series, I wasn't doing any moto vlogs. And so I was only putting out content about every month or so. And then I got into, started my moto vlog season up, and I reached out to a bunch of people on our Discord and I said, what's everybody doing for audio? And I kind of pieced together from being here now with Percy. If you guys don't know who he is, go check out.
He's great.
Percy.
Yeah, check him out.
And he put out a kind of a diagram of how to wire your helmet for a dual moto vlog.
Yes.
And I was very interested in that because I wanted my wife to ride with me and I wanted to do a moto vlog with her. And so I used that system, and then I ended up using a mic from another friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, Bri the Biker. Yep. And I used a mic that he suggested, and I was getting a new helmet anyway. So I started from scratch. I pulled everything out of my old helmet. I threw my old helmet away. I started from scratch and I put a new motovlog system together. And I don't want to be a total dick about it, but I think I have very good audio. So
you do. You definitely do. And it's so hard to get good audio. But and it's funny because I don't know, have you watched many of these, but I always go back and look. I like to take a sample. So I watched your very first video today again. I actually had seen it before, which is actually unusual because usually, you started a couple of months after me. And I think I discovered you guys fairly early on with my YouTube channelness and whatever else. So I'd seen it anyway, but it's actually like, when I watched it again today, I was like, this is really good for a first video. You know what I mean? It's like, you thought about it, you put it, like my first videos, I just put on a camera, put on a mic and just rambled. Now, that's most of my videos anyway, so I can't really say too much. But so your channel overall, which honestly, like, as I said, this is something I do every time I look at numbers. This is impressive, right? You have 51 published videos, 49,000 views, and 859 subs. Now, what's super impressive about that is 50 videos. That's like an average of 960 views per video. That's really good for a small channel our size. Because I think my average it's definitely less than that. I'm actually not even going to look at it because it'll just depress me. But because I know of some very, very poorly performing videos out there, but that's really, really good. So congrats on that, number one. And you're going to be at 1,000 in no time, I'm sure.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really, my goal is I'm really hoping to hit 1,000 views before January 1. So, or 1,000 subs before January 1. I have some very good performing videos that kind of landed in this calendar year, and I don't want to lose those views before I hit 1K. Because I do know that YouTube does that I have I have a couple of videos that really have my watch time up. And so, and you don't want to get lost in the minutia of the analytics and all that kind of stuff, because it's not, at the end of the day, it's not about that, right? I'm putting out content that I would want to watch myself. And I think when you talk about, when you said, and I very much appreciate that you said my first video was good. I spent a lot of time just watching other people's first videos. Yeah. So I had some idea of what I wanted my video to be like. And I also had a really good idea of, how I wanted my channel to look like. And I think the other thing too is, I'm not a spring chicken. So I have a pretty good sense of self. I know myself pretty well. And so I wanted to make sure that I was in my wheelhouse. And so honestly, when I first started motovlogging, I didn't really know where my wheelhouse was going to land, just in terms of, I knew I could get on a bike and talk. I mean, I don't have a problem talking. Yeah. But I wanted to make sure that my content was honest, and that it was going to be honest to the type of rider that I am. And so that was that was an important part of it to me, is that, I say this to my wife, is that if I'm going to talk about it, I want to be about it. Right. So if I want to talk about riding, if I want to talk about traveling, I need to do those things. If I'm going to talk about moto camping and put out a video on moto camping, I need to do them. And so, I'm not just going to make a video about camping and have all these camping supplies and then never go camping.
Yeah, I've seen a few videos where people lay it out in their sheds, and it's they've all the best of the best gear, and then they never go. I mean, the time I went camping, I mean, we were very unprepared. We went down in October to a part of Ireland which is known for wind and rain anyway. And like myself and my friend Kev, I had a tent and a sleeping bag. That was about all I brought. It worked. We had a good time. But I think there's definitely, I'm definitely more of the just get the bare minimum together and go. And then there's the people who over prepare and never go. And then there's someone like yourself who actually prepares properly and plans it and goes and probably enjoys it more than when I just go like, all right, I'm going and I don't care what happens, so yeah. Definitely.
Well, and it makes for some really good memories too, because this year I experienced what I would call cold camping, where we ended up being camping in September when we wouldn't expect it to be cold. And three days before we left to go camping, it was 96 degrees in our campsite. 2 days before we went camping, it snowed 9 inches. So we camped at a campsite, and I posted pictures on my Instagram.
I remember
that I was setting up my tent in snow. Yeah, and you could see the frost on the outside of my tent. And my tent is not a cold weather tent; it's a 3-season tent. So, but again, it was about preparing the right things. So I'm a notorious overpacker anyway. So I had, pretty much everything I would need, but I also over prepared. So I made sure we had a campsite that had electricity. I brought an extension cord. With that extension cord, I brought a heating pad. And that heating pad saved my life, because I put the heating pad in the sleeping bag, and, and I'm not going to lie, the first night, it didn't keep me warm. It kept me from dying. That was really it.
Cold.
Okay. It was 28 degrees. So if you can about imagine 28 degrees in a 3-season tent, camping on the ground in the mountains, it was what you'd expect. I could see my breath in my tent all night long. So there you go.
It's an experience. It's not something I wouldn't do. I'll put it that way to you. If obviously, if I turned up with just the tent and stuff, I would have been like, okay, I need to go to a hotel because I will die.
Right.
But before we get too far into it, do you want to give your own channel a quick intro for the people who have not seen you yet and might want to go over and have a look? What do you do? What's your channel about? What are you doing for it?
Absolutely. So I go by Kidmoto22 on Instagram and on YouTube.
Link in the description.
Yeah, thank you. And basically, my channel is, it's a very traditional, United States-based moto vlog channel. I ride in the upper Midwest, and I guess that's a little bit of a misnomer. I ride in the very northernmost part of the United States. Basically, I live in North Dakota. I'm 100 miles from the Canadian border, and my riding season here, realistically, nice weather riding season is about 4 months. You can ride about 6 months if you want to ride in cold weather. So like today, it was a very sunny day, but it was 19 degrees most of the day.
That is very cold. 1 second for the Europeans in the audience and the people who use numbers that make sense. 19 Fahrenheit. I can't even spell that. There we go. I'm bad at spelling anyway. So that is -7 degrees Celsius. That is pretty cold.
Yes. So yeah, it was.
Wouldn't even get out of bed.
And we haven't even gotten into our winter weather yet. So, but we don't have snow. And so, if a person wants to brave the cold weather, you can ride now because it's really not cold, or it's not snowy. It's just cold. So you just have to get out and brave it, right? So I did some things this year to try to extend my season. So I have some heated gear that I didn't have last year. So I'm actually gonna try to extend my season. I'm hoping to put out another moto vlog in the next few weeks that will be in this cold weather.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I do ride all year round, but I'm an idiot. As I think we've established multiple times. So, like last year, I wore. They're down in the garage, but I wore summer short gloves all the way through winter, except for about 2 weeks when I just couldn't anymore because I got to a point that I went somewhere. I went to break, and my fingers just didn't really move much. So I had to like take my hand off the bar, do this really quickly, and then I was like, okay, I can break now. But I do. I need to. I've had my textiles for at least 5 years, and they've seen probably 40,000 miles, I would say, between all of the bikes. They're well worn, and that's all season. So I do need to replace them. I do need to get better gear. It's something I really should have done a while ago. So I will do that. I promise. But speaking of your motor vlogs, was it today or yesterday? It was probably yesterday at this point. You put out a video that you own the best bike in the Harley Davidson lineup.
Yes, now, I do own the best bike in the Harley Davidson lineup.
Absolutely. And again, if you want to see that video, it's not really controversial either. It's pretty some pretty good points. go check that out on Kidmoto's channel. But tell us about your bike.
Yeah,
what is the bike you currently own?
I ride a 2017 Harley Davidson Road King Special. And so I've also done some modifications to that bike. And I guess if you were gonna line it up in a style, it's kind of that club style, performance bagger style. It's kind of what I'm going for. I haven't done all of the, I guess I haven't done the suspension brake work that would really fall into the performance bagger category, at least not yet. I think those are a couple years down the road. Aesthetically, that's kind of so I have a Road Warrior fairing. I have T-bars on it. I still have the dual exhaust, so I haven't done a 2-in-1 exhaust. I do have stretch bags on it. And so, but it kind of falls into that, like I said, club style or performance bagger style category is where my bike kind of falls in.
I just realized it's unfair to explain this without. I'm going to get a picture because this bike is stunning. I love it. So hold on, I'm just going to share screen here so everyone else can see it as well. Here we go. Bam. That is his bike.
I appreciate it.
It is beautiful. I absolutely love that bike. If like I said, if I could have a Harley Davidson, I'd like a Road King, and if I could have a Road King, I'd want your one. Because you've done it in the way that I think I would do it if I had the time, the money, and the willpower to go about it. It's just that is the color, everything, the accents. It's what I would do. So yes,
well, I appreciate it. And I'm not a giant like you, but I'm in that giant category. And
you're still a big guy.
Yeah, it would fit you well. I think that's the thing. And I kind of stress this, even I say it in my moto vlog, I say it in my Instagram posts, and I tell people to ride your ride. Right. And what I mean by that is if you're riding in a group of people, make sure you're riding your pace, your style. If you're riding by yourself, follow those same rules and ride the motorcycle or the adventure bike or the scooter or whatever it is, ride your ride what fits you as a person, where you're comfortable. If you like sport bikes, ride off them.
Absolutely.
I would never disparage somebody for the bike that they choose to ride. I choose to ride Harley Davidson, but it's my history. If you look on my Instagram post, you'll see a picture of me when I was 10 years old on the back of a 1984 FXRT. So ironically is one of the most coveted Harley Davidsons out in the industry right now. But I grew up on that style of bike, and so for me, that's where I landed. I didn't, in fairness, my first bike wasn't Harley. I had a Kawasaki Cruiser. I had a Kawasaki Vulcan. Actually, was my very first bike, and so and then I moved up to a Sportster 100, and then to my road. So, it's one of those things where I needed to the bike where I land, where I'm comfortable, and how I like to ride. And that kind of goes along with that video of mine that you just thought of why I think it's the best bike in the lineup. Is I say why it's the best bike for me in the lineup, and I also defend that point of why I think it's the best bike that Harley makes. So, both those things hold true for me. Now, every rider, I'll be honest, a Road King or a Road King Special is not the right bike for every rider.
Oh yes. So I actually think as well, when you're talking about biking history, and you actually just covered my next question as well, so well done. Somehow predicting it was your biking history. So you just walked us through that, which is good. And I know you said previously you weren't a huge fan of your Sportster, but we'll come back to that. I am jealous that you have the kind of the biking history thing, because motorcycles aren't huge in Ireland anyway, and there wouldn't be huge definitely in my family. It's only really my uncle who likes them. And there's also a cousin, my dad's cousin. I don't know what you call them, uncle cousins, but yeah, he's also huge into bikes. So there's a little bit of it there. But definitely when I was growing up, there's no pictures of me beside bikes or whatever else. Like I said, the only thing that I remember from my childhood was I saw a Super Magna once, and I told myself I'd own one day, and now I have one. So that was really the only part of that. But yeah, I think that's really cool. That there is a heritage there, and I've spoken about it in videos before. I think heritage with bikes is really important, even now, even to me. And it's funny because I don't know. Your Sportster was probably carbureted, was it, or was it injection?
No, it was fuel injection. Actually, I think the first 8-year fuel injection.
Oh, okay. And was the Vulcan carbureted?
It was, because that would have been a 2005, I think. So yeah, I think that was carbureted. Yeah,
because I feel sorry for people who never get to experience carbs at least once, because they're just a different feel on the bike, aren't they? It's just a completely different style of power delivery, and it's that raw sound of the carbs working that I just love it. So, yeah.
And it's hard to tell too when you go from a carbureted metric bike to a fuel injected Harley. It's not really a fair assessment, because they're totally different. Like say like this, my Vulcan was geared much like a sport bike. You know what I mean? It was really like you were just cracking through the gears as fast as you could. Was kind of the how I describe riding that bike, where even a Sportster or my bike now, there's a lot more low torque, so the bike's not fast, but it feels powerful.
Yeah.
If that makes a difference, if that makes sense to you.
No, that does absolutely make sense. Okie doke. Right. Okay, so we'll drive on. So bike aesthetics. That's the next question I want to ask. You share a lot of kind of what I like is that more muted, subtle styling, the black and the dark grays and stuff. I love that. And eventually the Magna will change color. And obviously the new CBF I have is black, mainly black. The Gixxer is a little bit more shouty, but it's a sports bike. They have to be shouty, right?
Right.
But sure. Even, my Phaser was blacked out, engine was black, frame was black. So that is definitely a style to go for. But what drew you to that aesthetic?
I think the biggest thing for me is it sounds cliche, but I like to ride. I don't like to polish. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't have a problem with chrome necessarily aesthetically. I think it looks good.
Yeah.
But I think there's this kind of this thing in motorcycling culture is, you know, the guy with the cleanest bike has the guy with the lowest miles, right? He's also the guy with the lowest miles. And so, and I'm not disparaging people that just own bikes and don't ride them. I'm just saying I ride. I like to ride. I like to put miles on my bike. And so that doesn't mean that I don't like a nice bike or a nice looking bike or even a clean bike for that matter, because I like all of those things. I just don't want to be locked into, you know, if I ride my bike to a camping trip and I ride through a rainstorm, that I have to think about, you know, cleaning all of those water spots off of my exhaust before I ride it again. Otherwise they get burned into the exhaust, right? I just don't want to think about those things. I would rather have my bike get dirty. You know, when I went on my camping trip, we were gone for 7 days, 6 nights, 7 days, and a full almost 2,400 miles. And I didn't, you know, I came home and washed my bike when I got home. And so my trip was what it was with my bike. You know, there was bugs and dirt and dust and, you know, road grime and everything else, just like all that stuff was on me. Right. And so that's, I think, my biggest thing aesthetically. I think that chrome looks nice on a bike, and I don't mind, like, I do have some chrome accents on my bike. And I don't mind it. Would I prefer that there was no chrome at all? I would actually prefer that there was none, even the bolts. I wish even the bolts were black, because that, and to me, it also leans into a little bit more of a sinister look, which I appreciate. You know, there's a little bit of that. I think there's anybody that rides any kind of motorcycle, even if it's a sport bike, there's a little bit of outlaw in you, right? There's still a little bit of that when you have your shade down and you pull up next to somebody, you know, at an intersection, and they kind of look at you, and you know, there's that brief moment like, should I be scared, or am I going to wait for them to wave to me? You know what I mean? And I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It was funny. That thought really first occurred to me when I was on a motorcycle trip last summer, and I went into this gas station. I was in the middle of nowhere, and the gal says to me, she says, "Do you ever get scared riding alone?" And I said, "I never get scared riding alone." The thought had never really occurred to me. And I realized as I was walking through this gas station and I was, you know, in my full pirate outfit, that I was the person that the people in the gas station were afraid of. And
some psycho murderer pulling up on the King of the North.
when that kind of really hit home, then I was like, okay, that, you know, that makes sense. Is that, you know, I am traveling alone. I am riding across the country, but, you know, really I'm the stranger in that environment. And so, so that kind of gave it a little bit of perspective, I think, as far as that goes.
Yep, that's fair. And I have been told before that when I turn up in my full gear, I'm an intimidating character. But like, if someone listened to me, like, I am just a very enthusiastic person about bikes. I am not scary, unless you make me angry, in which case I might be. I don't know. I've been angry in a long time. But the next question I like to ask people is the favorite bike that you've owned. But I think we can skip that because I think we know it's your Road King.
It is my Road King for sure.
So there are a couple more gaps that I would like to fill in for the people at home. So the favorite bike that you can't afford but would like to own, and the bike that you can afford but you don't currently own. What are those?
So if I was going to say the bike that I can't afford and don't own, it would be I don't know if you saw the Battle of the Kings last year, Matt Laidlaw's bike. They called it the Coast Glide. It had an old FXR fairing, and I can't afford a bike like that. But that was actually, we did a podcast a while ago, and that was my in my top 3. That bike was in my top 3 for sure. That
I actually listened to that podcast. Myself.
If I could, if I were to trade my bike for any bike, you know, just right now, without thinking about it, without giving it a second thought, I would trade my bike for that bike in a second. I wouldn't even hesitate, because it has everything that I would want on a bike. You know, all the reasons why I said I think the Road King is the best bike. That has all of those things. I could use it for touring, but it's a little bit, I would say, sportier chassis than what mine is. So
and that's a special bike as well.
It is right, and it's probably in that I would guess $65,000 price range. I would say right up in there, probably.
Oh, so it's like a good chunk of a house.
Right, exactly. And then as far as a bike that I don't have that I could afford,
yes.
Right now I'm really so if I have to be honest to how I ride, which is what I base so many of my videos on, and when I say ride, you ride. So I'm going to be honest to how I ride. I would have to say a Sport Glide. I could definitely afford a Sport Glide, and that because I would style a Sport Glide very much how I styled my Road King, right? So I'd probably put T-bars on it. I would probably put a fairing on it. I would probably paint match the saddlebags. But again, it's a sportier version and a little bit smaller chassis than what I have right now. So it essentially would be a smaller touring bike, because, if hopefully some of your audience goes and checks me out, and hopefully they subscribe. But if they do, exactly. Right? if they do, they'll see, that's my passion is really riding across the country. I love long motorcycle road trips. That's what I love more than anything. I'm not a bar hopper kind of guy. I don't ride my motorcycle from bar to bar. I do use it for commuting, but I live 35 miles from work. So when I ride my bike to work, it's a 70-mile day.
Yeah.
So for me, the road trips are really where it's at. My wife and I went on a 4-day motorcycle road trip this year. I documented that on my channel. I did go on my camping trip, and I haven't actually put a lot of that footage out yet, because I did a few different camera angles that I haven't done in the past. So I'm really trying to find the best way to put it out. And to add insult to injury, much like what happens in every moto vlogger's time, I had audio issues, I had camera issues, I lost footage. All of these things happened to me on that trip too. So
lovely. That always does. It always does.
Exactly. So there was some of that went right along with everything. So I think that the Sport Glide would definitely be one that I could afford that I don't have, that I think I even mentioned this in a video that somebody, and even one of the people that subscribes to me talked about it in my last video, about how they said, what about the Sport Glide, being the best Harley? Well, I defended my position about how I feel like the Road King is the best Harley in the lineup, but the Sport Glide for me would be probably one of those that I would also trade for my bike.
Yes, I get you. And that the next question is, you say trade for your bike, but at the moment you're a one bike man. Are you always going to be a one bike man? Would you get a second bike? If you did get a second bike, would it be the same genre? Would it be a Harley? Would you get something entirely different and to park it alongside the Road King and just have that different experience? Would it be a KLR, etc.? Would you get a second bike?
I've thought about this, and I have mixed emotions, because I feel like if you get a second bike, it becomes it's like having a wife and a girlfriend at the same time. You have it's like you have this bike and you love this bike, and then you have a mistress, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't know if I have room in my life for two motorcycles. I don't know if I do.
I have 4.
I know you do. It's funny. I'm envious of those people. Another good friend of mine, Walter Vivolts on Instagram. Walter has 4 bikes.
He's a great guy.
And he has 4 bikes of different flavors. He has a sport bike, and he has a Triumph. I think it's a Thruxton.
Yes,
it is
magnificent.
It is that bike is one of the best bikes one of the most amazing bikes I've ever seen, and I've yet to see it in person. And just in photos, it's amazing.
It is.
He has a Harley. He's had a ton. He's had a Ducati Scrambler. He's had a ton of different bikes, and he appreciates each one for what they are different. So if I would get a different bike right now, just like if I were to just say, I would get something that was completely not how I ride. So I would get like a KLR or an adventure bike or something that could do things that my bike currently does not do. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't get another cruiser. I would get something that offered me a completely different motorcycling experience.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because I did a video on that before as well about, you know, why I have the different type of bikes and why they're different experiences. And I don't subscribe to the you know, to the idea that's currently out there that to have a big adventure you need an adventure bike. You absolutely don't. Like,
no way.
And I brought my Super Magna before I even fixed the suspension on it. I had one fork that was completely blown out, and actually when I went to rebuild it, there was almost no oil in it. And I went up a goat track mountain pass in Ireland on that thing, and I actually overtook at one point on the way back down. I overtook a guy on a BMW GS, and he was going slower than me. It was a 2019, and it was in 2019, so he probably was just being careful. But I went past him, you know, on my 1987 Super Magna that was leaking fork oil, and the brakes didn't really work at the time. And, you know, you can do whatever you want on any particular bike, but definitely there are applications that certain bikes are definitely more suited to. So I completely understand what you mean by getting something that's a different experience, because like the likes of a KLR, you could probably use, that would probably extend your riding season over there even more. You know, you can use those in snow to a certain degree.
And I wouldn't, I think about having a KLR2 would feel, if I dropped it or tipped it, I wouldn't feel as bad.
Yeah, definitely not.
You know what I mean? Like, right, exactly. Right. If I, you know, that would be for me, it would be to have a bike that I wouldn't care if it got scratched up, or if I wouldn't care if I drove through the woods, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I would adventure different on a bike like that, right? Because I think every motorcycle trip takes you on an adventure. But on that kind of bike, exactly, I would adventure differently.
So I think you've already hit upon why a cruiser, you know, for your trips and stuff, that makes complete sense. We just talked about why you consider another bike, and one of my questions was going to be why Harley Davidson, but you answered that already. So where I was going to hit on from that was, what do you think about Harley's current situation? What do you think about, you know, where they're going as a bike brand, and do you have any concerns about it? Personally, I am upset that they've parked the Bronx, because the Bronx, I would love a Road King, like I said, but currently I even if I had the money, I just don't need one. There's nowhere in Ireland that suits a Road King. We're not big enough. It's a very small country. We don't have the roads for it. You've seen the roads I ride on, but a Bronx would have made sense, and it was beautiful, and it had the right engine, it had the right power. The Bronx would have made sense. So I am upset about that. But anyway, are you concerned about where you see them going? Are you concerned that they're dropping some bikes? Or do you think that they're finally trying to actually reinvent themselves a little bit, which I think everyone agrees they need to a degree?
So I think there's so many different angles that you can approach this. So I think what everybody forgets, and I mentioned this a little bit in our Discord chat the other day, and so I think it's worth mentioning. So there's a certain thing about Harley is the only vehicle manufacturer in the world that 85% of all VIN numbers issued by Harley Davidson are still on the road today. So if you think about that in terms of just a vehicle specific thing, imagine if 85% of every Ford vehicle ever produced was still on the road, right? It's not. It's not even. It's impossible. It's right. It's not even a real thing. So if you think about 85% of every VIN ever issued through Harley Davidson still exists and is still running, that's an impressive number.
That's crazy.
Harley Davidson only puts out numbers for their shareholders for new motorcycles sold.
Yep.
Everyone needs to remember that. Only new motorcycles sold. Okay? I have owned 2 Harley Davidsons. Neither one of them have been brand new. My numbers don't count into what anything's ever been sold through Harley. I bought my Road King. It was used. It had one owner before me. That one owner put 238 miles on that bike and traded it back in.
Oh, that was new.
Yeah, exactly. I effectively got a new bike, but it did not count against those numbers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the big thing that everybody, and when they owned the biggest part of the market share, Harley had, you know, for 20 years, they had probably 80% of the cruiser market sold. So they were pushing a lot of motorcycles into the market that are just being handed down and changing hands over and over and over again.
Being modified and, you know.
Right. I mean, my Sportster that I traded is now on its third or fourth owner. It only got counted as a new bike sale one time.
Yes.
So I think it's such a deceiving statistic. Think about how many bikes that you own right now.
Oh, no, I agree completely on that point. 100%.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to create an argument. I'm just saying that if you just like Walter, he's owned a ton of bikes. I think he's only had one or two of them that have been brand new motorcycles.
Yeah.
And so when you think about those statistics and how people trade off on motorcycles, there's a lot more people riding than people think. There's also a lot more people like you and Walter that own multiple motorcycles. I mean, it was a question you asked me. How if I'm going to have more than one bike at some time, or families. If you and Toaster start riding together, you're going to be a multiple rider, multiple bike family.
I'm going to have 8 bikes.
You're going to have 8 bikes, or maybe 10.
Maybe 10. Who knows?
You know what I mean? So I think that so that's the first thing that I think is a deceiving statistic. So if we move on from that and we talk about the corporation or where Harley's going, I think there. So you have these multiple things going on. You have a whole generation of riders that are still in the marketplace that wants Harley to never change and not do anything different.
Of course, yep.
And they're the ones with the money who can afford to buy the $40,000 and $50,000 motorcycles. Yep. So they feel like they should have the loudest voices, right? Then you have a whole generation of young people, the millennial generation, who is now our second largest population on the planet. And they don't have as much disposable income, but they've lived their lives in an entirely disposable environment. Everything in their life is disposable, and they're not attached to anything, right? Mm-hmm. So the history of the motor company doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
Whether the bike is made out of plastic or metal doesn't matter to them. And really, they're more at like price point and what I'm going to use it for, whether it's good for the environment. Like, they're connected to all these things that don't really connect to what I feel like is the heart of motorcycling, which is adventure.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about it is that the millennial generation loves adventure, right? They thrive on adventure, but they don't see motorcycling as a place to get them there, which I don't understand.
The thing is, I'm technically a millennial, so there's definitely a percentage of my generation that definitely do have an attachment to the history and heritage. But here's the thing, right? I have a huge issue with a lot of dealers. Like, where do you find your history? It should be at the dealer. You know, where should that service be? Where should the attachment to the brand be? It's at the dealer, you know? And we don't have enough of them here because we don't have enough motorcycle riders. And then some of the dealers who I've talked about in previous podcasts, we won't go back to it, are poor. So obviously Franklin motorcycles in Dublin being the exception that I've dealt with, they're just fantastic. Which is definitely one of the reasons why I am so drawn to Indian. Now, I liked them before I ever met the guys in Franklin, but it is a huge piece of it. So I think a lot of it is almost a borderline snobbery from some people in the Harley Davidson community towards people coming in from the outside. And that's not just Harley Davidson. That's not just Harley. That's a lot of bike people, older generational bike people. You know, they look down at people who like ABS, who like, you know, EFI, who like all of the electronic assist. They believe it's taken away from the purity of motorcycling. And to a degree, I actually kind of agree with them. But that is no way to attract in people. So there's definitely a mix and match there between millennials, and absolutely there is a percentage of people of my generation who just think everything is throwaway.
Let me ask you this though, because I agree to a point, but I disagree. So do you own a car?
I do.
Okay. Do you think that your car dealer has any responsibility to you as a consumer of whether or not you enjoy riding or driving that car?
My car is a Saab and they no longer exist. So,
right. Okay. So to your point, right. So this is the thing. It's unique to motorcycling. I think we've put this extreme amount of pressure in motorcycling on dealers of all kinds, because motorcycles are not, cars are utilitarian, right? We use them to get back and forth to work. We use them to carry our groceries. A car is a tool.
Yeah,
a motorcycle
it's a tool,
is not a tool. It's something that we use for adventure. So we've heaped all of this responsibility on the dealers, and I look at it just the opposite way. I think it's our responsibility as riders. I think it's your responsibility. I think it's my responsibility that we get out there and create more riders.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like, okay, so I said it in the Discord one time. If you don't want to be a Harley Davidson pirate, find a community where you fit, where the Harley Davidson pirates aren't at.
Yep.
And for those of you that are in Gorilla's audience, if you don't know when I say Harley Davidson pirate, that would be the person that subscribes to the Harley Davidson uniform. You have to have the jacket and the chaps and the headband, the bandana, and you know the gold teeth and the patch over your eye. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but if you don't want to be that and you want to be all the things that you are but ride a motorcycle, you need to find that community in the motorcycling world. And if you don't know where it's at, get on Instagram, find people that ride and instant message them. Eventually you're going to hit somebody that would be willing to talk to you, right?
Yeah.
And then you find that community. Yeah. Then you find that community that they're involved with, and you continue down that path. I mean, that's the one thing, we'll get into it later about the Discord that I love, is we're building a community that's centered around people that I would like to hang out with outside of, my life. And they don't, and they don't have to be pirates. And some of them are, but that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree on riders needing to create more riders. It's something I try to actively do is get people to try motorcycles, because that's a big issue here, is people don't realize how great they are, because it's not really a historical cultural thing here. It's just not done.
Right.
To certain families, obviously, yes, and you'll obviously always have the odd black sheep like myself who'll just fall in love with them and that's it. But very, very few people will actually try it. Some people are pushed towards it from financial purposes here. They're much cheaper to tax. They're cheaper to insure in certain cases. They're small. They're handy to park. So in Dublin and stuff, people do go to them for financial reasons. But yeah, definitely a lot of people don't try them. And that is something that I personally feel very strongly, but I do try push people towards motorcycles. So I agree with you. I do agree with you there. But something as well that definitely is an inhibitor for my generation to adopt and try Harley Davidsons, especially here. This might not be as big an issue here, but even here, secondhand motorcycles and definitely brand new motorcycles is the cost of entry.
Yeah,
it's just so high.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon here. And I think, to me, besides cost of entry, it's all the hidden costs. And I'm not talking about upkeep on your bike, because you can do that on your own. You can buy a manual. If you're mechanical at all, or you're willing to learn, go to YouTube University, and I have probably 10 videos of installs of my bike alone, right? And so you can learn everything you need to on the internet to work on your own bike. You've got great videos of all different kinds of working on your motorcycle. So it's out there.
Thank you.
But you can't, you buy the motorcycle and then you need to buy a helmet. And those, if you buy a good helmet, they're not cheap. And I don't know any rider that only has one helmet. And you need to have some type of safety gear, gloves, riding pants, boots, jackets. And I don't know about you, but I have multiple of all of those things too. Right. And I guess I look at it like this. One of the things that's really popular in my area of the United States is hunting. Hunting is huge. I don't know any person that hunts that only has one gun. Right. So you tabulate how much they've spent on their guns and ammo and hunting gear and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, you have a motorcycle in your shed right over there with all your hunting gear. Well, but I really love to hunt. You can only hunt 2 weeks a year. You spent the whole rest of the year for those 2 weeks that you spend hunting, and the rest of the year you spend preparing for those 2 weeks of hunting.
Yeah.
It just depends on what your hobby is, and if you want to do it enough. And I think, like anything else, you have to decide that you're gonna budget you're going to budget for that thing, that you're going to budget to have something that you want to do and you want to enjoy. I can tell you that if I've learned nothing in the last 5 years, I've learned that life is short, and I always tell people when I talk about motorcycling, the only ride I've ever regretted on my motorcycle is the one I didn't go on.
Yeah, 100%.
And I would say that that's true of any adventure, right? I mean, I've watched some of your videos where you're riding, and I can tell that the roads are wet. It's raining. It's cloudy. It doesn't really look like, the most ideal conditions. And I guarantee you feel better when you got back than you did when you left your house.
Absolutely.
Right.
Every time.
Right. Every time. Exactly. The only bad ride is the ride you didn't go on. The only ride, like I said, I've only regretted is a ride I haven't gone on. In fact, it was probably just a week and a half ago. We were expecting some pretty bad weather here. It was cold, but it was very sunny, and it was beautiful looking outside. Now it was cold, but it looked beautiful. I didn't ride that day, and I regret it a week and a half later that I didn't even get out and ride for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Not even out to the shop or something. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's funny that you should say that, because the trip I was talking about, the camping trip I went on with my buddy Kevin, we almost didn't go on that because the weather forecast was looking kind of like, it could be bad. It's still one of the trips that, I talked to him about, and we just had a great time. But on the next day, on the way back, it rained the whole day. I would have been drier if you had submerged me in a bath full of water. I would have been drier. Like, we went into a shop, and we went into a restaurant to get some food. It was an Eddie Rockets, actually. And like afterwards, they had to put up the cones around where our table was, because, like rider gear just sheds water. It doesn't hold it. So as we were sitting down, it just started to shed the water, and there was a literal pool of water around us. So 100%, but that was still absolutely brilliant. Was I cold? Yeah. Was I uncomfortable? Slightly. It was still great fun. So definitely agreed with you on the ride not taken, say. The next thing I want to talk about, so definitely price is a problem with Harley. So for yourself, and I know obviously you have, your Road King, but for your second bike, would you consider going back much older? For instance, would you have a carbed bike, or is it just something that you're just not interested in? Do you want something modern? Do you want something reliable? Do you want all those creature comforts?
So I think the fact that I have a motorcycle that I could, that I can jump on and ride anytime, that's an important thing to me. I want something that's reliable and ready to go.
Absolutely.
And
I have one the same.
Yeah, that I never have to question. I can just get on it and go. That requires regular maintenance, just like a car does. You got to change the tires and change the oil and do those kind of things. That's required, right?
Yep.
So that doesn't. I don't think that counts. You can't just say you never can do anything to it. That doesn't count. But I think if I were to do that now, my interests very much would lie in my buddy Tony Cox. Again, he's on YouTube and part of our 5 Dirty Bikers podcast. He just bought a vintage Honda, and he's restoring. Yeah, he's restoring a vintage Honda. I have a lot of interest in doing something like that. Now, I'm not talking about really old, right? I would do something like in the 80s, because I really love those 80s paint styles and just the ridiculousness of the 80s. I really love that. And so for me, it would be like a CB500 or something in that category, the Cafe Racer style, something from the 80s. But I wouldn't want something completely I don't want like a barn find garbage, right? I want something that runs right now, that I could take apart, make it look beautiful, put it back together, and do some things aesthetically to it, and then have that bike that if I did want to like cruise over to bike night and park it and let everybody stare at it, that would be fun, right? Like that would be what I want to do. But my whole thing is with motorcycles is this: motorcycles are meant to be ridden. Yes. And if I had 10 bikes in my garage and I only rode one of them, I would have 9 of them for sale, because they're meant to be ridden. I do not believe that they're meant to be looked at. Now, there are some that literally are just art pieces, and I can appreciate this aesthetic of that, right? but I fully feel like motorcycles are meant to be ridden. So if I were to do a vintage bike like that too, I would ride it. It would have to be a bike that I could ride. I do not want a bike that's just gonna sit around and have people stare at it. I'm not interested in that.
No, and I'm the same. You know, like realistically, I do need to take apart the Magna and get the frame repowder coated. That's going to happen. But like, yeah, no, I completely agree. I ride all my bikes kind of even cyclically. Like, you know, the CBF I use obviously for like long trips to work and back and stuff, because that's what it's for. It's a modern bike, and modern bikes have their plus points. That's just a fact.
Absolutely.
You know, the Gixxer, when that's ready, that's going to be probably once a week type bike because it's very fast. It's going to get me arrested. So it's once a week. Yeah. Like the Magna, I use that in and out to Kilkenny and all that. So, you know, that's a brilliant bike for if you're going out for an hour or two. It's great for the shorter rides just because it is what it is. It's an 87 V4 that kicks you in the back of the head every time you push the accelerator. It's fantastic.
Right.
I mean, that's what it's for. Yeah. But I completely agree. If you have bikes that are sitting in a shed that aren't being used, give them to me. I'll use them.
Give him to GorillaBiker. He'll ride the bike.
Absolutely. But no, that's great to have that desire to have an old vintage bike, because I am a huge proponent of that. I think everyone who is really into bikes, if everyone got something that was old and vintage and just kept it alive and brought it out, even if you ride it once a month or something, and let people see that is a piece of history you're keeping alive, and it's a piece of the heritage that we were talking about earlier that we need to show the other people to get into bikes. Because if that heritage doesn't exist anymore and we don't keep it alive, then it's gone. So, you know, it's...
Yep. Well, and to your point too, there's a reason why those bikes still exist, because a lot of things and you know, take this, people can take this how they want. They can take this as a knock if they want, but things were made better. You know, the older bikes, there's a reason why those bikes are still around, is because they were made, you know, the fenders are metal fenders. They're not plastic. The body pieces are metal. They're not plastic.
And there's a guy I've started watching recently, and this will tell you, his name is, I'm just looking him up here. So here's a shout out from his channel name is Classic Octane, and he just pretty much works on vintage Honda CB550s, CB750s. And I was watching a video of his recently that he pulled a bike that had been in, I don't know, was it in storage or just in the back of a shed somewhere for, you know, years, like tens of years, you know, 10, 20 years. And he literally, all he did was clean the carbs, put in some new seals, gave it fresh fuel, new battery, and it started right up. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's what Tony has been working with, a vintage bike guy in Kentucky, and that's what this guy told him. Tony's like, I think I'm going to redo the top end. The guy's like, don't do it. He goes, don't spend the time. He goes, same thing. You know, clean the carbs, clean the pistons, you know, put on new seals, make sure everything, you know, fresh oil, fresh gas, fresh everything. Make sure you don't have any leaks. And he said, and Tony's like, well, the compression's bad. He goes, the compression will come up. The compression's going to even itself out. The bike hasn't run for a long time. You're going to have some struggles getting it going, but when you get it going, it's going to be fine. Yeah. And he kicked it over the other day, and it did. He said the compression came right back up. So he did figure out that he had bad carb too, but you know, it came back up. So, I mean, I think that, yeah, that would be the only, and the other thing too for me is that it would give me a project, because
the winter.
Well, winter for sure. But there are times when I can't ride. But there are times when I like tinkering almost as much as I like riding.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be the other part of it, is, you know, to have access to something that I could tinker around with and still have something I could ride. So I think that's probably in my future. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that's not something I don't do when I retire, is just buy an old bike. And now I'm you know, I'm not aging myself quite that far yet. I'm a ways away from retiring, but I could see myself getting a bike that I could just, you know, mess around with, and then having one that was ready for me to ride whenever I wanted to.
I fully support it and look forward to seeing it. You're on the hook now. You know? What do I have here next? So, tours. I have some questions around tours. What is the best tour you've ever done. What's next, and what would be the perfect trip for you?
Wow. There's a couple of, I would say right off the top of my head, there's two of them. The Midwest Moto Meetup that I went to last year, because it opened the door for so many of the things that are happening in my life now. Just in terms of the friendships I made, the podcast, so many other things were opened. The doors were opened up through that. Going to a place where I could meet people that I had, there were so many like-minded people there. That was incredible. So that was a lot of fun. Sheer riding, the trip I did to South Dakota this year, the riding was the best riding I've ever done. I rode through, it was in the area of the country where Sturgis is held every year in the United States. And I'm sure that your audience knows about Sturgis.
I think everyone knows about Sturgis. Everyone
knows about Sturgis, right? If you ride a motorcycle. So that was the area of the country that I camped in, that I rode in for 6 days. So it's a really iconic, epic part of the United States with just great riding. There's not a straight road in that area. Every road has curves on it. Every road has switchbacks. Every road brings something new to the table. Trees, mountains, valleys, waterfalls, everything is there.
Yes.
So, and you can do it. I mean, I was there for 7 days, 6 nights. I didn't even scratch the surface. I honestly did not even scratch the surface by how much riding there is to do. So sheer riding, that was a really great trip. As far as future trips go, we have another Midwest Moto Meetup planned for hopefully this coming spring. We won't mention the C word, but the C word is that's causing some headaches for us, because we had to reschedule our meetup from this year because of that scenario. So that was something that was not that personally was kind of honestly kind of heartbreaking, because it was going to be an opportunity to meet more people from our growing community.
Yeah, of course.
And so that was pretty heartbreaking, but so that kind of fell off the radar a little bit. Next year, or the next riding season, I'm vacillating right now over a few things. I'm thinking I might want to go to there's a place in Utah, Colorado called Monument Valley, and it's another very iconic place to ride.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
Yep, that's about 17 hours for me, so I could probably do that in a 2-day trip, and then ride out there and then ride back. If I really wanted to crush the miles, I could probably do it in a day.
You'd be insane, though.
Honestly, having a large displacement touring motorcycle like I have makes a lot of things a lot easier. I can spend a long time. I mean, if you get off the bike, if I get off the bike every 100 miles, I can ride a long day. And so
the trouble that I have found with the larger, is like my CBF is it's very fast. And the problem with it is it comfortably cruises at 100 of your units of measurement. I'm not going to say them because that could be used against me, but that is where it comfortably cruises at, which is insane. And like, you get off it and you feel like you haven't even been on a bike, so you cover ground quickly on that thing.
Yeah.
really quickly.
Last summer, when we went out to the Midwest Moto Meetup in Illinois, we rode north to south through the state that's below me, which is South Dakota. So we rode the width of that state entirely 90 miles an hour. I set the cruise control on my bike and 90 miles an hour for a whole state. And it just cracked it off like it was nothing. I mean, didn't even really affect the gas mileage, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, you can cover a lot of miles on a large displacement bike. Now, truth be told, you can do the same thing on any displacement motorcycle if you've got your bike set up the right way for you.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing, is to make sure that your bike fits you and fits how you ride. Maybe you're not a kind of person that's going to ride 600, 700, 800 miles in a day. That might not be in you to do that. I, on the other hand, look at that as a bit of a personal challenge, right? I like to I like to test my limits. I like to see what I'm made of. Both last year and this year, every year that's gone by, I have increased my miles in a day trip, my miles in 2 days, my miles in 3 days, my miles in 5, so on and so forth. So I continued to raise the bar for my length of my trips and length of miles in a day. And I think I found kind of that sweet spot where I can ride. I think I'm pretty comfortable right around that 600, 650 and still get back and be able to, set up camp and that kind of stuff. If I started getting around that 700, 800, 900 miles in a day, setting up camp would be miserable. So
yeah, of course.
That
just sore.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. And I also enjoy, both types of riding. So I enjoy motorcycle camping, but I also enjoy when my wife and I went on our trip, we did the same thing. We did a 4-day trip. We did 2 long days and 2 short days in between. But we did all hotels. Stay in a nice place. You have a hot tub at the end of the day. There's something to be said for a trip like that too. I mean, that was a lot of fun. And to go with my wife and have our comms unit set up and just, kind of share that really
more chilled out.
Yeah. And it was interesting too, because it's like, it's this together alone time. You know what I mean? Because it's just her and I, but we're on a motorcycle. You're touching the entire time. Right. So there's just something different about taking a trip like that. That's different even than taking it in your car. So
completely different than in a car. Yeah.
So, and I really for your guys' sake, I hope that Toaster does embrace riding with you. I would love to see you get her riding, do some moto vlogs with her, dual moto vlogs. I don't know if she's interested in that, but I would love to see it. I think it would be so great.
I hope I can convince her that. I think it'd be awesome. I agree completely. So we'll see what plays out. I'm not going to put any pressure on anyone, but if it happens, it'd be cool.
And even if you don't, to see, even to see you do that with your brother or, some of your friends that, it adds such an interesting dynamic to have somebody that's along for the ride with you. That's not the creator.
Yes.
That really brings a different perspective to the whole thing. And it changes the experience of riding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I've asked this question and I have one question for you.
Go on.
If you were not a content creator, does motorcycling hold the same interest to you with no content creation?
Yes.
Okay,
so I've talked to someone about this before off podcasts and stuff, but for me, I always have loved, all forms of motorsports. And it just so happens that motorcycles just they're the thing I like the most, Now that's definitely partly environment. It's very hard to have a nice car here in Ireland. They're very expensive to keep, and fuel is very expensive here. And it goes on and goes on. Bikes just make sense here because it's a brilliant place for adventuring. You can park anywhere, etc. I actually only record 30-40% of the time that I'm on the bike, and even at that, it's possibly a stretch. What I found was I like to, and it's something that I think I should do less or do more of the recording, because when I go away with friends, there's often trips that, I don't record it. It's large chunks of it. And then I get home and I'm like, that was actually, that was really fun. We'd good talks there. That would have been good to record. So maybe I need to just record more. And even if I throw it out and don't make a video of it, so be it. But no, definitely, without the cameras on, it has just as much of an appeal to me. And even sometimes if we come up to a nice stretch of road and I just want to switch off, and it's why I've started doing those raw sound videos, because some days I'm just going out, like those raw sound videos. I like, for instance, when I did the raw sound there, the one I released yesterday on the phaser, all that was I just rebuilt the forks. That video is coming out tomorrow. And I was just bringing that bike out to test it to make sure the forks were good before I handed it over to my friend. And I just didn't feel like talking. So I was like, you know what? I can do the raw sound now, so I'm going to do that. The same as the raw sound I did on the Super Magna. What I was actually doing was I was going in to collect my takeaway dinner for myself and Toaster. So I said, you know what, why not record it? I can record that, just raw sound it. That's how I ride all of the time, is like an asshole. So it is what it is. So yeah, definitely the same appeal for me. Yeah. What about you?
I think, yeah, for me, it's really enhanced it because it's connected me to all these people that I probably wouldn't have been connected to otherwise.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's the biggest appeal is all these connections that I've made with people who have become genuine friends.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%.
Even across the globe, right? I mean, it was funny because I share a group text with everybody in our podcast, and I said, I'm going on with Gorilla tonight, and every single person knew who I was talking about, and so but that kind of statement taken out of context, no one's going to know, right? Like you become your moniker, you become this identity, and to me, like I said, it's just enhanced the experience of motorcycle and the content creation. I look at it like this. I think we're in a really super unique time of motorcycling, and all of us content creators are documenting motorcycling like it's never been documented before.
Yeah,
motorcycling has never been documented like this before. You've never had people all the way across the globe working and wrenching on their bikes and putting videos up, doing moto vlogs, talking about their lives, talking about their motorcycle. This is a super unique time for motorcycling, and it's going to live on far past us and maybe past motorcycles.
I hope so.
I mean, I'm confident that it will, because the inception of the internet, the data that's being created. I don't know if you know this statistic, but I think I want to say 2015 is when it started. In the year 2015, they figured out, after Instagram launched and like that whole generation came to fruition, and really the iPhones became kind of more commonplace and the cameras got to be really, really good in the phones. More photos are created every day and posted online than the entirety of photos that were ever created from that point on, going all the way back to when photos were invented. So like, it's not every day, but it's this really short period of time, like every 2 months or whatever, we are increasing that amount of data by the same amount that was created from the inception of pictures until 2015. That amount is hitting it every 3 months. And
that is a cool stat.
When you think about that in terms of just content creation and stuff that's hitting the internet, think, how many videos do you have now?
160, 170, I think.
That's incredible. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at it even 10 years down the road. Okay, say you stopped right now.
Yeah.
10 years down the road, you may or may not be married. You may or may not have children. But if you do, your kids could look back on that and they could say, look at what my dad did. You know what I mean?
It's true.
They could either say, you're a complete moron, or they could say, my dad was cool before he became a dad.
Yeah, now he's a loser.
I mean? Yeah. Now he's like a dad and he does dad things and it sucks, right? But my wife and I, we make fun of it all the time because my daughters, they love YouTube. And my youngest, who's 8, she has said to her friends, and this is by no means accurate, but she has said to my friends, do you know my dad? He's a famous YouTuber.
Brilliant.
Like she, you know what I mean? She's introduced me that way. And again, I'm by no means a famous YouTuber.
Well, actually, every time someone says that to me, I point it because it's something I take a lot of pride in my channel, and be that right or wrong, I do. It's something that I am proud of, that I've stuck at, etc. But anyway, that's not the point. Imagine, all those bands, like local bands that go into a pub or a club and they play, and there might be 150 people there, and that's a big crowd.
Yep.
You have like 5 times that many people subscribed to your channel.
I know. I know. That's crazy.
That's a big crowd,
I know. And that's what I said that to my wife too, when I'm really close to 55,000 views right now. And I said that to my wife. I said content that I've made has been viewed 55,000 times.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's a football stadium full of people. Yeah. It is insane, right? And who am I? Like, I don't have Michael Jordan's talent, but I'm performing to Michael Jordan crowds.
But I mean, it's true. Like, I think it does go to show that there's there's so much space out there, even because it's something that I know a lot of people question is, is motovlogging dead and all that. There is always people out there who'll be interested in what you make. You know what I mean? There are people who'll share your interests or find the way you deliver content is more entertaining for them than other ways. So there's always space there. So yeah, no, I think it's really cool. So
I actually found motovlogging because I couldn't ride in the wintertime. And I didn't even know motovlogging was a thing. And then I just looked up motorcycles on the internet, and I think I landed on like Blockhead or somebody like that first, right?
Yeah.
And because I mean, if you type in motorcycle, that's like the first thing. Blockhead's like the first thing that comes up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm living vicariously through this person riding in Florida while there's 5 feet of snow outside of my door and it's 30 degrees below zero.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, this is something amazing. And so I was just a fan of it for probably way longer before I became a creator. And then it just struck me that I'm like, maybe I could do this. And then, you can search it and find all the millions of videos of how to strap a GoPro to your helmet or whatever, you know what I mean? We've all done it, right? So
absolutely,
you can find all that stuff out there. And so I went to YouTube University and I learned how to do all of it. And I already knew how to talk. So
and it's funny that you say that, because how I found I've been creating videos for nearly 2 years. But before that, I mean, I've been watching Do It With Dan since he had less than 100,000 subscribers anyway. I'm not sure. I think it might have been 50 or 60,000. But how I actually found him was I was Googling videos for Magnas because I love Magnas. And it is completely coincidental that I stumbled across him and I was like, who's this guy? He's very loud and shouty. And he has the wrong Magna. He's the Gen 3 Magna. And then I was like, oh no, he's actually pretty entertaining. I mean, I remember one weekend I was sitting inside, because this is before I had a road bike again. This is years back. And I was living on my own at the time. Toaster was in Dublin. So it was, you'd be bored in the evenings. And I sat down and I binge watched 10, 20 of his videos in a row or something. And then that was it. I'd already, before that, I was always kind of like, I'd love to do videos on bikes and cars because I'm always working on bikes and cars. And yeah, then I saw that and I was like, oh, I'd really like to do it that way. And then it did take me another 5 years or something to get to the point that I was like, okay, I'm actually going to buy a GoPro now and do this. But it's funny that I was the exact same way that I kind of stumbled across it, nearly looking for videos of bikes.
Right.
So I think that just answered the question as well. Of my next one for you was why YouTube and what's your goal for your channel? What are your future plans? But is there anything you want to add to what you've already hit on there?
I think, obviously my most immediate goal is I'd like to hit 1,000 subs. And after that, I think that to me, that's like, for me, that's like what gives you legitimacy, right? Anybody that has above 1,000, I think has put in the work, right? Not everybody. I mean, there are people that just hit it big or put something out there that really, resonates with people.
Of course.
But I think most people that have at least 1,000 subs, they've put in the work. So to me, anything beyond that is going to be gravy. I don't know that I'm really going to be super concerned about it. And it's really not about monetizing. It's really more about the people I can reach. I think that you're taken a little bit more seriously when you have over 1,000 subs. I think there's all kinds of things that go along with that. And then as far as goals for my channel, I'm going to continue doing what I do now. I mean, I'm going to take people with me on my vacations and on my long rides and on my trips. I'm going to continue to make content about I guess I would say mods I've done to my bike. And I'm going to continue to make content about gear that I like and that I use and that I think is useful, because I think all those things have a place. I watched a video a while back and it said your YouTube content should serve one of two purposes. And it should all fall into these two categories. And if it doesn't, it's never going to do anything because it's never going to resonate. They called them the two E's. Your video should either entertain or educate. And anything beyond that is never going to connect to anyone. So if you think about that, every time you strap that camera on, am I doing a video that's going to entertain people, or am I doing a video that's going to educate people? And if you fall into one of those two categories, you're always going to find viewers. So there you go. So
fair way to put it.
And I think the only thing I have really keyed in on is age. Sounds really weird to say it, but am I going to age out of what I'm doing? Is it going to get to a point where people aren't going to take me seriously? But then if you want to get to the nuts and bolts of it, and I look at my analytics on YouTube, my analytics are an age group that are much older than me. So I find it to be interesting. It's an interesting scenario.
I don't think so, because I think a lot of learning is learning by doing, So I think if you happen across people who've been doing, for instance, how I learned the very first time I ever rebuilt a carb years ago was from a YouTube video, and it was a guy in his shed in the UK somewhere, and he was, I don't know, is he still around? And I don't mean that in a dark sense, but he was pretty old. But just the way he went through it, I mean, as he was taking things apart, he'd done this hundreds of thousands of times,
Right.
So I don't think, you'll ever age out of a particular content type. I mean, maybe if you're talking about, riding a trampoline to a cliff jumping spot and jump off a cliff, you might not want to do that when you're in your 70s, because you'll shatter every bone in your body. But I don't think I don't think you'd age out of it unless you wanted to age out of it, if that makes sense.
Yep. And if I still have
Moto for this now.
Yeah, and I think if I still have content that's relevant, that's still resonating with people, I think that's the other thing too, that I think you could find yourself on a slippery slope. You could run out of content,
Of course, yeah. But it's something that'll keep you busy in retirement too, because I mean that's the mind killer, isn't it, when you have nothing to do when you retire? So absolutely, and I think it's important to have a hobby, and to have one that you can do, that you can continue to grow with, and certainly motorcycling is one of those things that you can continue to grow with. So you never run out of stuff to do.
No, for sure.
And even just to jump back to the 1,000 subs thing real quick, I don't think it's a legitimacy thing from the outside looking in, definitely, but it's a nice to have. It's not about the monetization, even though that does help it. It helps pay for a little bit of petrol, because it does cost a lot to make videos.
There's no doubt about that.
But it's I think it's nearly like if you start doing videos, you're probably quite a driven person, or you do have some sort of goals, because if you didn't care about anything, you wouldn't make them.
Right.
And it's a target that YouTube have actually set, whether they meant to or not. They give you 2 things that you have to hit in order to fulfill this goal. And, I'm a pretty competitive person from sports and stuff like that. And, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, I want to do that, but I want to do it for me. It wasn't for anything else. It's like, I want to get those and tick those, make those things green, and, then it's done.
Yep.
And that's it. Once it's done, it's done. You don't have to worry about it again.
Right.
So.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the other goal, I think, for me, as far as content creation, is I'd really just one time like to have that one video that really just resonates, really just connects to people. Just really, it wouldn't even have to be something that made my channel grow, but I think it would be neat that one time to just have that video that just hits that 50K 50K mark, or just something that really took off. I think it would be like just a fun ride to go on.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Bri.
Like Bri, exactly like Bri. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe not exactly like Bri, but yes, a situation, because I did a little bit of coattail riding on that one too, and I had my own scenario, and that video did well for me, but it also brought a significant amount of controversy to my channel. So
did it? Because I saw it very early on. I didn't see the. Should I go back and look? Is there some?
There's a lot of stuff on there. At a certain point, I kind of just stopped responding and talking about. I had there was some I had
choice.
Yeah, I had to delete some comments because they were really out of line.
Some people just.
Yeah, but that, I mean, that comes with the territory, right? When you open yourself up, you're gonna get criticism.
Of course,
that's part of
it. It happens.
You have to have thick skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because one of my videos still has, like, I think it was 50% of likes and 50% of dislikes, and I have no idea why. It was all I was doing was talking about how I'd really like to buy a Yamaha VMAX at some point.
Sure.
And no one ever commented to say why they felt the way they did.
Maybe got a troll that just got on there and just slammed, dislike as many times as they could.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But anyway, it was just a weird one because I was nearly like, come on, give me some abusive comments. Tell me what I've done wrong here. Because for me, it was me riding in and out to work talking about the VMAX because I really wanted one.
Right.
But they're not available in Ireland. So this is the last actual kind of targeted biking question. Then we'll get into more personal things. Would you ever consider, changing brand completely from your Road King? For the instance, the likes of the Goldwing Bagger, which is actually a very nice motorbike and gets rave reviews, or something like the new BMW R18. Are any of those things that could possibly attract you in the future, or are you fixated with your Harley and you're happy where you are? And the Challenger, of course, as well.
Yeah, the Challenger. If I was gonna be like a real dick about it, I would say I have no interest in changing to a BMW or to a Honda.
I don't think that's being a dick. I think that's if you like what you like.
And there's that too. I honestly, if I was gonna do like a list of bikes, it would be if I was going to move away from Harley, it would be to, like an Indian Challenger or something in that realm, something in the Indian line. And then it would be probably BMW, and then Honda would be the last one. And you're right. I think they're absolutely fantastic motorcycles. But what did I just say a little bit ago? If I was going to rebuild an old bike, I didn't say I was going to rebuild an old Harley. I said I was going to rebuild an old CB500 or something like that, a Honda, right? So I don't have anything against those. This is the thing. So when I look at the picture of myself on a Harley when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, I feel a certain way about it, right? When I look at my bike sitting in the garage, I have a picture of one of my girls on my bike. I feel a certain way about it. To me, that motorcycle has a life of its own. It has a soul. I'm drawn to it. Okay. Is it the smell of the oil or the sound of the bike? Or I think it's all of those things. I think to me, they have a soul. I see that same thing in these cafe racers right now. I look at a bike like that and it has character. It has a soul. It tells a story. You know what I mean? And so I'm very connected to that old feeling of the fact that your bike is for me, my bike is a reflection of me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that it very much represents my personality, how I like to ride, the design style I like, the kind of clothes that I like. Everything about my motorcycle is a representation of me. And so I would feel like if I was riding a Honda or BMW, I'd feel a bit like an imposter, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does.
And I wouldn't feel like I would feel like I wasn't being true to myself. I would be an imposter of myself. Not that I don't disparage anybody that rides a bike like that. You know what I mean? I would ride with somebody that's riding a Goldwing. I mean, my uncle was a Goldwing trike guy.
Once they're on two wheels or a trike, it's better than a car.
Right, exactly. And so to me, it's just really more about being true and honest to myself. Which, as you get older, and I know you're quite a bit younger than me, but as you get older, finding that place where you can be honest with yourself all the time becomes extremely important. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to do things that I don't want to do. I don't spend my time with people that I'm not interested in.
I'm already there. I got there at the age of 22.
Age of 22. I love it.
Seriously.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think that I like to fill my life with people that I want to be around, with people, I could sit here all night long and have conversations with you about this. I feel, super comfortable with you, that kind of stuff.
And it's all you guys on the podcast, when I jumped on there, it was like happy I could talk to any of you guys. It was cool.
Right.
So I get that.
I think that's the biggest part of it is just being true to myself and true to who I am would be the biggest reason why I would choose those bikes in that realm or that idea. Honestly, I'd sooner get rid of my Harley for an adventure bike, or even an adventure like even the Harley Pan America, before I would ride a Goldwing or a BMW. just because, and I wouldn't be opposed. I would get rid, I would actually prefer like a BMW adventure bike or a Honda adventure bike over a Goldwing or the BMW touring bike.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would still set it up like a touring bike. I would probably get the Pelican bags and, have all that kind of stuff on it, because that's how I like to ride. I like to go on trips and do things.
And you like to carry lots of stuff.
And I like to carry lots of
enough.
stuff with me. Exactly. So it would just be a different type of adventure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, good answer. Good answer. And I think that's fair. I mean, for me, people have asked me loads of times, would you trade in all your bikes and get one new one? And it's no, because I like having the different, specific bikes. That's just me. So I completely understand. Right. The next question for you. Now we're into the more personal matters. All right. Perfect. Your favorite YouTube channels. And you don't have to say me. I always have to say that. You don't have to say me.
Wow.
There's no pressure there.
Yeah, I've been going through like a lot of I go through phases. And so right now my phases, I've really been watching a lot of bushcraft camping videos. Where people are going out in the wilderness and they basically have a real primitive setup, and they're making these, camps out of stuff that they're finding around. And I'm watching, and there's no one I'm subscribed to. I'm watching, I'm just consuming as much of it as I can.
Yeah. Just flicking through it all. Yeah.
Yep. But really, like, between content creation, that kind of stuff, I keep my list really small. You know what I mean? I try to, I watch your videos, obviously, and I don't watch every one of them either. You know what I mean? Of any creator that I watch, I don't watch any. If there's one that catches my attention, or I know like the topic or the title catches it, or the thumbnail catches my attention, I'll watch that one. If I watch, and especially a creator I know, I almost always try to comment, just so that content creator knows I was there. And I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I want them to know that I'm still engaged, in what they're doing.
100%.
I mean, that, like, Dad and Mad, for instance, I love what John does, and the fact that he's just, he's growing a motorcyclist in his own home.
Yeah.
and I think, what I mean?
Watering it every day.
Absolutely. I mean, that girl she's going to be a terror on a motorcycle when she gets older.
And she's going to be
sticks with it.
Good on a bike, because he's teaching her the right way.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I think, those kind of things, I watch your content. I watch all of my friends, right? So Tony and Dustin and Mike and Mary, and I watch all those guys all the time. I still watch some of the big ones. I almost always watch John Maxwell. He's always engaging, but he's also a good friend of the podcast. We've had him on a couple of times, and he's really a solid dude. I still watch a lot of Blockheads content. I watch Shade Tree, and these are all people that have been on the podcast. So I think you start to get a little bit more of a vested interest in some of the people. More of a
connection with them, don't you?
Absolutely. You get more of a connection. Anybody that's in our Discord that has a channel, I'll give any of their stuff a watch or a view. Mm-hmm. And again, I think right now I'm more of I pop in to to different people's channels. Bri the Biker is a good friend of mine. I know that you guys talk a lot too. And I watch his stuff. And so I'm, and maybe it's going to sound like a cop out, but I really don't have like that go-to channel that I never miss right now. I don't. I try to consume as much stuff as I can, and that's nearly impossible to do that. But, there's a new one. She just joined our Patreon, Moto Blonde. She rides a Lowrider S, and I believe she lives on the East Coast. I think around, she lives on the East Coast of the United States somewhere. And she's really starting her channel up well. Whit Mesa, if you don't know who Whit Mesa is.
I do indeed. I'm subscribed to her, actually.
Whit is a legit, man. She rode 1K in a day. She rode 1,000 miles on a Sportster in a day.
That's not easy.
No, it's not easy. She went on a multi-day trip, I think a 10-day trip through some of the same areas I rode in. South Dakota, Montana, Utah, Wyoming, and she rented 3 different bikes. She actually worked at a Harley dealership for a while, I think on the sales floor, I think in the motor clothes department for a while. And Whit's a good friend of the podcast. We've had her on. She's putting out really great stuff. And Whit's got a great background because she's a photographer. And so she knows tons about cinematography and, what cameras are really good. And so she takes great pictures.
Yeah.
Really, really good pictures of herself and her family and that kind of stuff. And so, she's super engaging. There's just a lot of different content creators out there, I think, that are good. I don't watch any of the really huge ones anymore. So you'd mentioned Do It With Dan. I watched some of Do It With Dan stuff when I was doing like my motovlog setup, because he has done quite a few videos on how to set up motovlogs.
Yep.
So, there was some stuff like that I watched in the past. Scooter Tramp Scotty, I've watched some of his stuff. His stuff is really, really interesting. He's been basically a motorcycle vagabond for over 30 years.
I've seen some of his videos. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, if you ever watch anything on Scooter Tramp Scotty, he has a 2-part series where he basically just puts a camera on all of the Polaroid pictures he has. And he's telling his life story through these Polaroid pictures while he's filming it with the camera.
That's crazy.
It's the most insane thing. It's I think it's 2 videos. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. And he just tells all these stories about these Polaroids of all these pictures of before there was YouTube and content creation. And then of course Saddle Tramp. If you know who Saddle Tramp is, I watch a bunch of his stuff.
Yeah.
And, I think they're those are probably, that's probably a lot of people that I mentioned, but
But I'm actually the same. Like, if you were to ask me my favorites, I'd find it very hard to pick. I think I'm subscribed to 200 people or over 200 people. And the funny thing is, like, it sounds like you'd never get to watch them all, but I do. I watch all of those channels. And if I don't, I will unsubscribe, because I don't want to be a dead sub to someone.
Right.
I know what that feels like, and I completely agree with you on the comment thing. I don't comment even for a kind of like, hey, look at me. It's kind of like, and like you said, it's to let them know you're there. And I know how much I appreciate it when people comment with an actual comment on the content of the video. So I don't want to be asking for that and not reciprocating. So whenever I do watch a video, I do try to comment. I don't always do it. I do watch lots of videos, always hit like, but sometimes it just, I don't know, maybe I'm watching it when I'm doing something or something. I just forget to comment and I click on to the next one that I have set up on my playlist or whatever else. So yeah, but I understand completely what you're saying there. So
yeah, and I think that for me, the lesson I learned with engagement is that you never know what effect you're going to have on that person. I mean, I've had people that have commented on a video and I comment back, and the first thing they say is, thank you for, answering me so quickly, or thank you for writing back. And I'm like, if you took the time to write, I'm going to take the time to read it and to comment back. I mean, that's if you're a content creator, now listen up, content creators out there.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're not spending some time feeding the comments that come into your channel, shame on you. That's all I have to say. Shame on you.
People won't keep commenting because people see you don't respond.
Right. Right.
It's
like Shade Tree said on one of his videos. He says, he goes, I can't possibly comment on every video, every comment that I get. He said, but I guarantee you, I read every one.
Yeah.
And so I tested it one time with him, and I commented on something very obscure in his video, and he responded back. And then I knew that that what he said was absolutely true.
He was serious, yeah.
That he was serious about reading them, because this very obscure thing that he mentioned, I commented on, and then he connected to that and had commented back. So, it makes a difference.
And like, if you look at, I'm actually scrolling back through it here now. There's very few comments that I've never responded to, and there's reasons I haven't. For instance, there's one here. Someone commented on my Super Magna review video. 1988 Honda Super Magna, 1989 the best, Tina Turner. I don't know how to respond to that comment, so I just didn't.
Right.
And here's another one. Laurie's Crochet Corner. Hi, stop by to visit your channel, blah blah blah. I hit all the bells and buttons. So that's just someone looking for sub. I ignore them. I never respond to them. But unless you're being an asshole or looking for sub, I will generally respond. So
right. Yeah, I'm not interested in the sub for sub thing either.
It's pointless.
I am really a lot more interested in generating viewers that want to be engaging.
Exactly.
And I will absolutely, let me say this. I will absolutely sub to somebody if I am indeed interested in engaging with them too. Yeah. So if somebody subs to my channel and they're like, hey, would you mind taking a look at my video? I just posted a new one and it's similar to what you put out, or I ride a Road King 2 or whatever, something like that. And I go back and I look at it and I'm like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. I'll give them, I'll sub, I'll watch some of their content. But I'm like you too. If I'm on somebody's channel for too long, or if they have dropped off the radar, if they stop making content, I will unsub them too, because truly I want to be able to make room for somebody I might rather be sub to.
Absolutely.
That I would be able to engage with their content. So, and what I learned, I think one of the biggest things I've learned throughout this year is, and I'm not going to lie, this is a lesson I think I learned from Mary, is that Mary has always been, and Mary preaches this in our podcast, and she's really good. Mary is really, really great at engaging with people and getting people to understand that she reads what they write. She comments back. She, and she always does that. And, she said one time, she said, I would rather have 100 followers with 100 comments on every video than 1,000 followers with 10 comments on every video.
Completely agree. And it's I don't know, did you see the podcast I did with Brandon Picasso? But Brandon has, I think now he's like 12,000 subs, but his videos, at the time, I think we're getting far less than he wanted. And I was the same. I don't really care about subs. As soon as I got over the 1,000, I was like, okay, cool. The only thing that upsets me is when my videos don't get views. That's what I care about. If they don't get views, they don't get the comments to go with them, and people don't like them. That's what I care about. You know what I mean? If I put loads of effort into a video and it gets, even for instance, if I got 2,000 views and 10 comments and 10 likes, I'd be really disappointed with that. You know what I mean?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You're above 2,000 subs now, right?
Yes, I am at, 2,219 right now.
Okay. So I distinctly remember because you were on our Discord when you were below 1,000.
Oh yeah, I joined your Discord when it was like 300, I think.
Right. It took you way longer to get to 1,000 than it did for you to get to 2,000.
Oh, whoa, low! I hit 1,000 this year.
Right.
Yeah, like it only took me from, I think I hit 1,000 in. It was definitely March or April, and it only took me 6 months to get to 2,000. Right,
I remember it. So that's the other thing too, and I think that just speaks to the algorithm and YouTube and everything. That when you hit that 1K, your stuff, gets put into a different category in the algorithm.
Yes.
That it pops into people's feeds differently.
And it's interesting. Since I've hit 2K, everything has slowed so far down.
Sure.
Like it's like a button was flicked. I did my 2,000 thank you subscriber video, and everything literally from then everything just nosedived.
Right.
Which is
it's weird. It
is what it is. It doesn't really bother me that much. I still have lots of a lot of comments, which is cool. Right. So now the part where we get to talk about the 5 Dirty Bikers a bit. What are your favorite other hobbies other than motorbikes? Hey. Very nice.
My favorite other hobbies?
Yes.
Other than, I would say my number one hobby, besides my wife and my family. They're not my hobbies, but I think that's kind of a funny
big
thing
part
to say.
Of your life, yeah.
My other hobby besides motorcycling would be working on my motorcycle, would be making videos about my motorcycle, would be cleaning my motorcycle. Do you sense a theme here? No, I really kind of like Walter said too. Walter said when he gets involved in something, he's all in. Yeah. I'm all in. I think about my motorcycle, riding my motorcycle, something every day,
all of the time.
Is in my all of the time. And I know that you're the same. I know that this is like nothing that you don't understand, that you totally get it. Mm-hmm. But so even my interests that are surrounding motorcycling are tertiary to motorcycling are about motorcycling. So like, and if your listeners don't know, I'm one of the founding members of the 5 Dirty Biker podcast. And the 5 Dirty Biker podcast has been around for about, we're going on a year and a half now. So we started it in August of 2019. So this August was a full year. And So August, September, October. So, we're in our second season. Our first season, I think, was 13 or 14 episodes. We went to August to January.
Yeah.
And so this season will be a full 50 some episodes. We put out one episode a week. So consistently put out one episode a week. Usually on Mondays is when that episode drops. We record every Wednesday. I'm in a group chat with these 5 people that I'm in my in the podcast with. And when I say my podcast, that's exactly what it is. It's my podcast. It's also Tony's podcast and Dustin's podcast and Mike's podcast and Mary's podcast. Yeah. So every single one of those people, I expect when they talk about it that they say my podcast, because it's all 5 of ours.
Yeah, of course.
We make those decisions in our podcast together. If somebody is really not wanting to do something, it is not a dictatorship. It is an all or nothing deal. So either we're all on board with something or we're out.
Yeah.
That makes decisions difficult sometimes. I'm not going to lie. So you have to have you have to have 5 good people that you're willing to have conversations with, and that you're willing to get along with, and that you can do those things with, because that's hard to find. But I have 5 really, really good friends in this scenario. And so, and I just mentioned their names, but it's the Geared Raven. So please, if you guys are listening to Gorilla's podcast and in this video format, please get out and check out these other people. So the Geared Raven on Instagram and YouTube. Dustin, he's a D Thacker on Instagram, and Dustin is taking a break from YouTube, and I don't know. He right now, I would say he's on a long-term hiatus from YouTube. He may or may not come back, but D-Cycle is his channel.
I'll put links for everything as well down below.
And he's got a ton of good stuff out there.
He does.
Wet Banana Mike. Wet Banana Mike has a channel, and Mike has Sportster content, and he has KLR content, and now his new Honda dirt bike. And Mike can punch me in the face for this, but I can't remember all the letters and numbers.
CRF 450L. I love it.
Yeah, it's basically a rocket ship, dirt bike rocket ship.
It's actually that engine is a race built engine.
I know. It's super fast.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And so Mike rides a Honda dirt bike, and Mary rides a Honda Cruiser. She has a Shadow. And then also Tony Cox. Dustin, I should go back. Dustin rides a Sport Glide, and then Tony Cox, and he goes by Tony Cox on YouTube. And I think it's like Tony Cox 1731 on Instagram, something like. There's a number following his name.
I'll put links in the description anyway.
Yep. But anyway, those are the other people that are in our 5 Dirty Bikers podcast. And we also have a website. It's www.5dirtybikers.com. And there's links to our Discord and our Patreon. And it's safe. It would be good for me to mention our Discord is free. So if you are a rider out there and you're looking for a community of really good people to join, and I say really good people because if you're a dick, we will kick you out.
Yep. I've witnessed it.
He has witnessed it. But it's full of really good people that are interested in motorcycles. They want to ride. We do some charity work. We also sponsor once a year a motorcycle meetup. It's called the Midwest Moto Meetup. It's usually in the Midwest of the United States, and that's open to everybody, to all riders, all kinds. You don't have to ride a Harley. You don't have to ride a Harley to be in our Discord. That's important for everybody.
Well, look, Wet Banana.
Wet Banana does not ride one. Gorilla does not ride a Harley. Right, and so you come in and you can join our Discord. That's free. If you want to support the 5 Dirty Bikers and what we do, you can go to 5dirtybikers.com and you can join our Patreon from there also. And I do want to mention one other thing on top of this. So if you're looking for a good charity out there, I'm actually wearing the shirt right now.
I was going to ask about it earlier. Yeah, Weems, 100%. So, I'll put a link in the description for that too.
Yep. So that's for Weems Moto Company. Jared Weems is his name, and he has it gives me goosebumps right now just talking about him. Jared Weems made a Triumph chopper that is a replica of one of only 2 Triumphs that were ever on Easy Rider magazine, or only 2 Triumphs that David Mann ever painted. Jared made a replica of this bike, and he is raffling this bike away, and he's giving, that's Jared right in the middle with the beard and the tattoos. Yeah. And Jared's also a veteran. And some of the boys that you see on both sides, the younger boys, the two on the right and the two on the very far left, they're actually part of his Forgotten Angels charity. Those boys spent some time working on this motorcycle with him. But the Forgotten Angels charity is a charity that Jared is a part of, that they have set up their charity to take care of young men specifically that age out of the foster care system. So when you're 18, you're essentially kicked out of the foster care system. And Jared has built this. Yeah, so if you win this motorcycle, you also get the matching helmet, which was custom painted. And then you get like this, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can win, but that's the custom motorcycle that Jared built. He was planning on taking it to a bunch of shows, but obviously all those shows got canceled. And this is the painting. Pity. If you scroll over, that's the painting that this that the bike is built around, is that painting.
And he built that's it off a Triumph painting.
Like yeah, David Mann is a very famous motorcycle artist, and he built that bike off of that painting. And David Mann only made 2 Triumphs ever, only painted 2 ever in the time that he painted Triumphs. And Jared's actually building the second one now for himself, but this one he's giving away. So raffle tickets, you can go to Weems Motoco. You can also go to Forgotten Angels charity, and you can buy tickets for that. And it says right here, the ticket information there on his site, it said they're $25 per ticket, and
or 5 for 100.
Or 5 for 100. Yep. And you can buy as many tickets as you want. Yep. And what Jared said, and what I've been telling people, is that if you get one less Starbucks per week at the end of the month, you can buy your $25 ticket.
Yep. So I got my ticket, and I would love to win that thing.
Yeah. So you have to get out there and get out there and really support what he's doing. And honestly, Jared is an amazingly incredible human being. Jared, once he was out, we had him on our podcast. He joined our Patreon. He has been I don't think he's been in the Discord, but he's been in a bunch of the live streams and live chats, and he is just a really, really solid dude. I mean, I can't express to you what an amazing man he is. Besides the fact
he comes across like an incredible human. Yeah. Yeah.
Besides the fact that he served our country, which I think is incredibly admirable, he's a really good guy. And Jared will say this: he has a son that has autism, and we also have we're 5-Liter Bikers are a bit connected to that, because one of our own has a son. Dustin has a son with autism, and Jared has donated money to Dustin's charity, and he also sent Dustin's son. Dustin's son really likes gauges, and Jared sent him the dashboard from his 1964 Mustang with all the gauges, an original gauge dashboard gauge from his car, and sent it to Dustin. And so one of the things Jared really likes to do in his life is gift things to people. And so I think that's why it's been so easy for him to turn this bike into a charity bike, because essentially he's going to be gifting everything to the to the charity. So, and if you want to support Jared has a store here, Weems Motoco. And he, like I said, he is a great human being. So
which t-shirt is it you have on there? I'm going to get one myself.
I have that one. That's the back. That's the back of the shirt right there.
Yeah, 2XL is out of stock. I'll have to find another one. I'm definitely going to pick one of those up, though.
The other one just says Weems Motoco on the front, but that's his logo on the back, which I think is,
cool.
That would make a great
cool
tattoo. So
yeah, that would. But yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm going to put links in the description for all of the 530 Bikers and Weems. I'm probably going to put Weems at the very top, to be honest, because I just think if anyone can support that, like the fact. Like there is a serious amount of work that goes into rebuilding a bike, or even building a bike to the level he did, and everything else, and he's just giving it away. So yeah, absolutely,
100%. He came up with the money on his own. I mean, that money to build that bike came out of his own pocket.
Oh, it's his pocket, yeah, and he's just giving it away.
And he's giving it away, and 100% of that money goes to charity. So I mean, he takes that bike wherever he can get it to go. Whatever event is available, he's brought that bike to try to sell as many raffle tickets as he can, because he wants to be able to donate as much as he can to the Forgotten Angels charity. So, it's really a it's really an amazing charity. So,
and as I said, I was actually talking to a couple of people when I bought the raffle ticket myself, and someone said it to me, oh, but it's not a limited number of raffles. And I was like, I don't care. I'd sooner be one of a million people who bought a raffle ticket for that and not have any hope of winning, because I don't think that what it's really about. I mean, obviously, winning the bike would be incredible, but that's not what it's about.
Right. I mean, but could you imagine if he sold 1 million raffle tickets for that bike?
That'd be incredible. And it deserves it. I mean, look at it.
Oh, I know that. I mean, that bike is something else. It's absolutely incredible. Something else.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. But
that is Weems, and he deserves. To be honest, he deserves a podcast all for himself. To be straight with you, but someone who has done really good videos is on him is Shade Tree. Has done a couple of videos with Weems. And I would advise some people to go check them out as well.
Shade Tree did raise some money for the charity too. I think in his last live stream, he raised about $3,500 for
chopped off charity. A big chunk of his beard and got a bikini and whatnot. He raised a lot of money.
Yep. Yeah. And I get it too, because I am partial to the facial hair myself. So I completely understand the meaning behind chopping off some of your beard. So
absolutely. So before we finish up fully, do you have any questions for me?
Do I have any questions for you? So I do have a couple questions for you.
Okay, go on.
1 second.
Returning to his other form.
That's right. This is how I wear a hat all the time. If you watch any of my intros to my videos, I always have a hat on backwards. I wear hats, but I never wear them forward.
It's just comfier.
It's more comfortable for me. I only wear a hat forward when truly I want to block out the sun. Otherwise, there's no reason to wear it forward. So, I remember in one of your last videos, you talked about coming to the States. Do you ever have any designs for living in the States at any time in your life?
Yeah. I think I mentioned a long time ago. I do. I want to live in the US at some point. I'm not saying as permanently or anything. Although I would imagine once I got over there into the the motorcycle scene over there, you'd probably have to drag me out of the country kicking and screaming. But yeah, no, absolutely. Ever since I was a kid, like I said, motorsports and stuff aren't huge over here except for rallying. And I have an interest in rallying. I do like rallying. I go and watch rallies through forests and stuff because they're insane. And obviously we have the motorbike road racing over here. But as a kind of a culture, there's not a huge amount there for motorbikes. And I'm not saying it's non-existent. They're definitely a very healthy group of motorcyclists does exist in the country, but nothing compared to what you guys have. And also I can, if I got on my bike tomorrow morning and we weren't under lockdown currently, I could ride all the way around the country in a day. And I am like you. I like going on long trips, and I just think, America for a while anyway would just be kind of like a playground. It's like, what am I going to do this weekend? I'm just going to go that way, and see what's there. So yeah, definitely, I would like to live there at some point.
Unfortunately, you can get on your bike and you can say, I'm going to go that way, and it might take you 4 days before you hit the ocean.
Yeah.
So especially from where I'm at right now, I mean, I live in the middle of the United States, but I live in the middle of the top of the United States. So I can, if I head straight down, it'll take me, probably without stopping, it would be 18 hours or 19 hours to hit the ocean going straight south.
That's quite a long time, man.
It would be, and it would be the same thing both of the other directions too. So, that's that's one thing. So yeah, really. So do you think, this is kind of more of a statement, I guess, than a question, but I have three people in mind, and I'm going to use you as an example. I'm going to use John as Dad and Matt as another example, and I'm going to use the two Kiwi riders as my third example.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that being moto vloggers outside of the United States has hindered your growth in your channel and your popularity on YouTube?
I don't know. To be quite honest, I haven't ever thought about that. I don't think so. I don't know, because I do, like, I have a healthy American subscriber base and stuff, and sure. I don't think it's very hard to compare my growth to another channel's growth, because it's so hit and miss, like you said. Sometimes people just hit a video that resonates. I've been more the slow grind for growth, you know, with the nearly 200 videos for what is it, 2,200 subscribers. I'm very happy with the growth I've seen. Would it be different if I was in America? I don't know. I think the only thing that would hinder me if I had a much stronger accent. Like if certain areas of Ireland have a much stronger accent, and I think if I had a stronger accent that people couldn't understand me as easily, yeah, that probably would have hindered my growth a bit. But I think as it stands, I don't know, probably not. Maybe I'm just a bit boring, and that's why I haven't grown more.
I don't mean like hindered your growth in a bad way. You know, I think there's a mix. I think there's a mixed thing right now, because I think both you and John have been hindered by your ability to get out and make content right now. And so that has caused you to not be able to do maybe as many or the same type of riding, because, you know, you guys are in legit lockdown where you can't even ride your bike.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, I could ride as much as I want, because I was staying away from people. I was social distancing. I had a helmet on, but I could still go for a 500-mile ride if I wanted to, because I wasn't going to run into anybody. You know what I mean?
Sensible.
So there's, you know, right. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Right. So
no, that is sensible. I wish we could do that.
This is what I have always found interesting about it, is that, and it's been specifically as related to like your Instagram posts or thumbnails or whatever, is that I have on many occasions seen one of your Instagram posts and thought, holy crap, you'd never see something like that here. You know what I mean? You know, like I think about it in terms of like a wider historical perspective, right? The United States is a baby compared to any country outside of the United States. But we feel like we have, you know, the run of the world, but really in terms of culture, like, I mean, you've posted multiple pictures of castles, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We have not ever been around. First of all, we never had a monarchy, right? We never had castles here. And the ones that were here were big, you know, tents, and we chased them all out of the country.
And gave them polio and stuff.
Right, exactly. Right. So it's there's kind of that whole, you know, that other thing where I find it so, like, I have on occasion watched a couple of your videos and thought to myself, I think I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown watching you ride your motorcycle, because it's terrifying to me. and it's terrifying, not because I feel like I couldn't ride there, but it's terrifying to me that your country, it looks like it's, like, to me, I'm used to a road with curbs and gutters and, you know, and like wider streets vehicles. And I remember one not too long ago. You're like buzzing down this road, and there was like houses on side, and you were like going along, and then like this car comes out, and you just like, you know, like whip around this car, and I was like, I just had a little bit of like chest pain watching that happen, and you were just like chatting away, like, oh, there's that car right there, and I'm like, how did you not stop and pick up one of those 2,000-year-old stones and throw it at him? Because I really like it. It is it's such a different, or even watching John ride when I've seen him ride on occasion. And for those of you that don't know, John is Dad and Mad. Yeah. Watching him ride where he's riding in the UK and you know, some of the narrow roads, and he just you know, busting through there on a Sportster. And what's so deceiving about watching you ride or watching John ride is that I know for a fact that I ride way faster than you fools do. I know I do, because I can see both of your speedometers, and I'm like, it just feels like it's so different because everything's so much closer to you.
Closer,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like your roads are so much narrower, and that there's houses right by you. And a couple of those times you stopped and looked at these old houses, and I'm like, dude, you just blew by that thing going like 40, and you could reach out and scrape your hand on it, you know, and I'm my Road King video that I just did, or the one I just posted and defended how I said that's the best bike.
Yep.
I was riding 65 or 70 miles an hour in that whole video, but I was so really wide open.
Yeah.
But I was so wide open. It looks like I'm going 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's just nothing around me. I'm out in the middle of, farmland, agricultural land. So there's nothing out there.
Yes.
And so you don't get that perspective that you're really like busting through traffic like you guys are. And so, that's the only, again, when I asked you that question, it wasn't a knock. It was just more of because I have said this on multiple occasions, and I've used you three as an example, that if you guys were based in the United States doing the exact same content that you're doing right now, I think all three of you would be huge.
Oh, damn it. Don't tell me that.
and it's just, and not that, I mean, you're all three of you have, John and I might be similar, but Kiwi Riders and yourself are, both of you are way bigger than I am. But your content itself and in the sheer number of videos that you have, not only that, but the access to land that you would have to ride in, I could just, you know what I mean? I just think that you'd have an immeasurable amount of content to.
Yeah, like I can't even ride off road here because everyone owns all of the free land.
Right.
If you see a field, a farmer owns that. If you see a forest, someone owns that. I can't just go and ride a dirt bike in there like Mike does. I don't have those type of roads. So yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I understand that.
It's just, and I think the other thing too is that, what I think is great is when you talked about your accent and maybe your accent would hinder you if you were harder to understand. Here, it would be fantastic. it would just be, it would be fantastic to hear you motovlogging here. And so that's why I really, when you were talking about your trip coming here for work, if you got a chance to rent a bike and motovlog here in the States, riding a bike here, it would. Yeah, it would be a great thing. And so, if you are ever here and it's a time of the year when the weather is right, don't think that I'm not going to come find you. Because
I had every intention of getting over there this year. For obvious reasons, that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Exactly.
Like that work trip, I was super excited because it was, number one, the work stuff we were going to be doing was interesting, but then obviously that got called off too for obvious reasons.
Right.
But I will be over next year unless the entire world is on fire again. Definitely next year. Yeah, I'll definitely be over. And I know, it's funny because there's so many people, I have a couple of who I would consider very good friends now who I talk to daily. There's Hatter in West Virginia, there's Bry, there's Graham Trooper all the way over in New Mexico, a couple of people in Florida. It's almost like where am I going to go? Because there's so many. It's like what part do I go to ride bikes? But I don't know. At some point I want to hopefully live there and hopefully tour the entire country. So we'll see.
And that's a bold statement because those of us that live here don't do that either. But somebody asked me that too. Do I ever have plans of traveling overseas? And honestly, I have to be. If I'm going to be 100% honest, I really don't. There's so much of the United States that's beautiful to ride in. Yeah, at some point, you just have to get out and ride. You have to get out and see as much of the country that you can because it's so amazing and there's so much of it there to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not that I, like sometimes that sounds like an arrogant thing to say, but I don't want to disparage anybody else where they're riding or their country or whatever. I don't want to disparage that at all.
I don't think it comes across like that. I think anyone who has actually looked at the United States subjectively for exploring, I think that's just a true statement is you have so much stuff to explore and it's so varied, from Colorado to Florida. Florida's completely flat. Colorado is not. You go down to New Mexico, it's a bloody desert. You go across to California, it's like this tropical paradise. You know what I mean? So, and then you have massive forests, you have Yellowstone, etc., etc., etc.
And it's funny because there's parts of Florida where you could pick somebody up in North Dakota and drop them off in Florida and then take the blindfold off them and they wouldn't know that they were not in North Dakota versus Florida because North Dakota and Florida are both extremely flat. I mean, we're crazy flat here too. There's no mountains or anything here. It's all super flat. That's why I have to leave North Dakota to get that kind of environment. Yeah, but if you go to the Gulf Coast, south and east of where Mary lives is one of my favorite places in the United States called Clearwater Beach, Florida. And the beaches there, they call it powder sand, and it feels just like powdered sugar when you walk on it. The water's warm. The sand feels like powdered sugar. It is amazing.
I have a question. Why have you walked on powdered sugar?
Maybe
just filling up your bathroom like I want to feel like I'm on that sand.
Haven't you? Okay, so I haven't actually walked on it, but haven't you ever done this as a kid? Because I have absolutely done this. So you open up like that container that has your mom's flour in it, and you just stare at it for a while, and then you just stick your hand right down into the flour and squeeze it with your hand.
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's the same principle. I'm not saying I stuck my foot in there, but it's the same principle.
You're not saying you stuck your foot in there, but we all know.
We might know that. I'm not saying I did or I didn't.
So, do you have any other questions for me before we move on?
I don't. I think those are just a couple of things that I have. So
no, they were good questions. So, lastly, do you have any other shout outs other than what we've already done?
No, I hope I didn't miss anybody.
We'll always miss people, and that's why I leave the shout outs up to you, because people can blame you. From my point of view, the only person I would like to personally shout out myself is Kidmoto. Help him get to 1,000 subs. Go over, give his channel a look. If you don't like it, that's not a problem. I think we both agree on that. No, you can't like everyone. But if you do like it, give him a sub. Let him know that you found him through this podcast, so I can be like, yeah. And other than that, look, I really appreciate you coming on, Kidmoto. I know it's a lot of time to give up, and you already do another podcast every week, so I do really appreciate you coming on here. I still have to hunt down the rest of the 5 Dirty Bikers and get them on at some point. Hopefully time will play to me soon now, and I can actually just start doing podcasts again, because I miss doing them. I really miss doing them. I love these chats. They're excellent. As always, if you ever want to come on again, or if you want me to come on for something on your channel or whatever else, just let me know. Like I said, love doing them. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Special thanks to all of my patrons. You're all legends, and I know one particular patron is going to be very pleased that you've been on the podcast. So thanks, Bri, for reminding me to do podcasts again, because I was kind of like, I have internet back, and then I wasn't doing podcasts, and he was like, do podcasts. So appreciate it. And other than that, yeah, thanks very much. So yeah,
I guess the last thing that I do want to say is I really do want to thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Not at all.
The platform is great. I love your content. I love what you're doing. I really love that you have become a part of the community that we've been building here. That was great, and we've missed you since you've been gone, since you haven't had internet.
I know.
I asked Bride that the other day. You're always engaging when you're on, and that's what I think probably one of the most important things to me has been being able to see the community grow, beyond the borders, and how inclusive it's been, and how people just pop in and say hi and pop out, and it's a great that community that's being built around motorcycling. Again, I fall back on, it's our responsibility, if we want to keep what we love alive, to continue to help it grow and bring new people in and be supportive. And we all want to be rebels, but we can't be dicks about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to be mentors. We have to help coach people that don't know how to do it, and provide an opportunity for people to get in and learn to love motorcycling as much as we love it. Because if they don't, they're not, they're never going to know all of the things that we know about motorcycling and how much we love it.
Absolutely. And you are never too old to learn to ride a motorbike. Never. Yeah. So thanks very much for watching. Adios. Later. And now you get to do the outro, crew. No pressure.
No pressure for the outro crew.
No pressure for you.
Do you have a no pressure for me? Do you have a bunch of people that watch after all that too?
Yeah, there's a good healthy outro crew there. They are the best, the most valued watchers. What? Nice. Yeah, MVWs. That's, I believe we referred to them as that before. Do you have a question for the outro crew?
That's funny. Let me see.
You're not allowed to say no, by the way. You have to ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask them a question. Let me see. I want the outro crew to either comment on this video or one of my videos. I want them to tell me what their favorite video of yours is or their favorite video of mine is.
Ooh, that's another. See, Monkey Butt had a really good outro crew question as well. So that's 2 in a row.
Yeah. I think it's good because I think we all, there's always like that one video that grabs our attention and draws people in. And I think, when I think about it for you, what's drawn me in, ironically enough, I think it's probably been more some of your Instagram posts where I'm like, and I distinctly remember one recently is right after you got your, you have a DJI, right? Like a, like a drone.
The drone.
Okay. Yeah. So you did that drone and you did that, most recently you did that video, and it's not even recent anymore, but you did that video footage over that art piece.
Yes. Yep.
You might have been, and I think you posted like a short clip of it on Instagram or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching. I'm like, this is why. Like for whatever reason, just like sometimes you get that content that just draws you in like that. That is that's super engaging for no reason whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't like a lot of crazy moto vlog or like you weren't. Doing wheelies or burning rubber or anything like that. But
I can't. Anyway,
the only thing I do want to see is when you get your Gixxer completely pimped out, I want you to drive that thing down the narrowest road you can find at the fastest speed that you're comfortable doing.
Easy.
And I'm gonna watch that video. I just bought a new TV. It's like I don't know, one of those crazy 65-inch, 55-inch TVs or whatever. And they're like the OLED, so it's like hyper fast, super realistic. And I'm gonna watch it on that. And I'm going to stand in front of it and see how long it takes before I flinch.
It's a deal. That's good.
I might even set up a camera to film myself doing it, and then if I do that, I'll post it for you.
Yeah. That's the deal. So you gotta video that reaction. But I think we'll let the outro crew go. So thanks for sticking with us if you have till now. Don't forget to jump over and have a look at Kidmoto. Until next time. Bye.